Hello and welcome to The Herd Has Spoken, a podcast brought to you by MuskOx Men's Apparel. Hey guys, Brad with MuskOx here again. I'm really excited about this episode of The Herd Has Spoken. I had the pleasure to speak with Kyle Wade of BoostedBoiz. If you're not familiar with BoostedBoiz, it's a huge YouTube channel in the car world. So he's got about 1 million followers on YouTube, over 200 million views over time. Yeah, that's a lot of views. Kyle's a great guy, and we got into a lot of interesting topics. Kyle talked a lot about his relentless pursuit of finding new content that his audience is going to like. It's not easy putting out content over a period of 5 years and finding ways to keep it fresh. So Kyle and I talk about that. I think that's an interesting topic for anyone who's kind of hitting that creative wall. So we get into that topic. Also talk with Kyle quite a bit in terms of some of his successes and challenges along the way in terms of being an entrepreneur. And yes, we hit the important question of the best car air freshener scent out there. So listen, guys, if you're a listener to the podcast, it really does help us if you can like and review the podcast and wherever you're listening to your podcast. So we appreciate you subscribing, liking, and providing a review on the podcast. So with no further ado, my conversation with Kyle Wade. Kyle Wade, welcome to The Herd Has Spoken.
What's up?
Hey, so as a car guy, certified car expert, some may even say, I got to get to a really hard-hitting question right out of the gates here. What is the optimal scent air freshener for a car?
Ooh, I think for the typical car guy, it's got to be black ice.
Got to be black ice. So
free black ice. You know, I don't put too many air fresheners in my car. I feel like that's guys that keep their cars nice and clean. Mine usually just smell like race gas on the inside, but the black ice air fresheners, I think that's the go-to.
That's a go-to standard. Well, I happen to know that in one of your most popular videos, which is you giving a mother a ride in a Honda Civic back in 2016, there are 2 black ice air fresheners hanging from the rearview mirror. So I am glad to hear that the answer to that question has not changed in the last 5 years. So black ice, there you have it, folks. I'm not even sure we really need to go forward anymore with this, but one way or another, we'll kind of keep moving on here.
That's probably the last time my Civic has had air fresheners in it. That's
so,
back when I used to drive it a lot and take friends in it, and then it slowly evolved into a race car. So
I love it. So it sort of evolved from the sweet, clean smell of black ice into just gasoline.
And then it all came out. Air fresheners had to go with it.
So your channel on YouTube, BoostedBoiz, it's become huge. It's one of the go-to car channels on YouTube, clearly. And from the outside in, it looks like it's been just a ton of fun from the early days when you, Charlie, and Mitch started making things happen. Obviously, the channels evolve quite a bit, but it's clearly a lot of work in reality to make this happen. So what has been the hardest part of launching, creating, and growing a successful YouTube channel?
I think the biggest thing is just the dedication to it, and then finding, with any YouTuber, they're always just chasing content, the next big thing, to draw more people in, and keeping that constant, hype up on your channel, I think is the hardest part, because without that, constant interest in what you're doing, it's hard to retain an audience. So the second someone starts a channel, you're going to be fighting that, I feel like, the whole life of the channel until you're at a point to where you're comfortable, to where we're finally getting to. But yeah, it's mostly just chasing content, thinking of ideas, and making it all work with your budget. And that's kind of the hardest part, I think, especially being like a car automotive YouTuber. So I think it's one of the most expensive to get into on the platform.
Yeah, it's definitely not cheap to continue to buy new cars, new engines, new anything that you can strap an engine on.
They constantly need maintenance. I'm buying gallons of oil like every couple of weeks, just doing oil changes on the car, and it just adds up so fast. It's not like streamers or like us sitting down on podcast or podcast channels. They just have a electricity and internet bill, and they can just stream
Right.
to people, and that's how they make their revenue. But we have to do all that on top of the time it takes to put into the vehicles, and it's just so much that goes into it.
So clearly, you're a YouTuber, but you're also a car guy, right? And those two things come together. But I think there's actually a really interesting theme here that is broader than YouTube or cars, which is the fact that in almost any business or arena today, like you've got to be able to continue to innovate and find things that your customers like. And at the end of the day, your customers are your viewers, right? And so you mentioned you're always looking for that next big thing. How do you go about doing that? And how do you evaluate what's a good opportunity to pursue and what's a bad idea?
Um, I don't know. Honestly, a lot of the stuff we've done up until this point is things that I've dreamt of doing besides the channel, like without having a YouTube channel. Like back when I first got into cars, I always thought like it'd be cool to like, because we have our minivan, for instance, like it's a sleeper minivan. Before the channel was even a thing, I thought, oh, it'd be so cool to do like a sleeper minivan, and take it to the meets and go mess with people because no one will expect it. And then I always wanted an MR2 back in the day because they're really fast on the street. A lot of this goes back to the street racing origins. And then, after the channel took off, we, kind of had the funds and imagination to do whatever we wanted. So those ideas I kind of just slowly took to life. And, one thing just leads to another. We always look for what can we do to make that vehicle better? What do we think people like to see it do? What are things like records that we could go after that no one has ever done before? Because I think those types of channels are, the ones that get the biggest interest, or people that are doing channels that are doing, things that no one else are doing. So I try to look for things like that and just try to stick out and be unique in our own way.
So as you're trying to look at find new opportunities, new things that your audience is going to be into, I have to imagine there's been some misses along the way. Does anything stick out to you that you've tried on your channel that just flopped? And I'm not talking about like some of the fails that you have, because that's part of the nature of racing, right? You're going to have fails. And actually, I know that's one of the things that your audience loves about you, is that you're not afraid to show those failures. But in terms of ideas for content, has there been anything that you've put out there that ultimately just did not work?
I was trying to think about it, and I almost want to say not really. There's nothing we put out there that just, flopped and no one was interested in it. There's definitely stuff we've done that doesn't get as much interest, just kind of like the day-to-day working on cars. Sometimes the videos of just,
Right.
maintenance isn't all that interesting. So sometimes on a certain day or two, the videos don't do as good, but the overall goals with where the cars are going, once we accomplish what we want to do with them, always makes up for it. So I've never taken on a huge project or anything and it just flopped for me. And I'm like, man, I really wish we didn't do that. Everything we've done is just, like I said, stuff we would be doing regardless, and we just happen to film it and people watch it. So I don't think anything has really flopped like that for us. It's
Well, that's
steady and gradual.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So you guys have continued to have to, evolve the channel, continue to, keep things fresh. There's a lot of car channels out there, but BoostedBoiz, you guys have been making things happen for a long time. What do you think it is about your channel that has allowed you to quote unquote make it?
I just think with how unique it is, and like I said, going back to doing things no one else is doing and just kind of sticking out from the usual crowd, I think that's a big part in what makes it what it is. Just all the guys, when we're all together, we have a really good vibe together. People like to watch our energy kind of bounce off each other, just try to make it entertaining and just try to make it something our viewers can relate to. We started just in the garage like any other car guy watching this now probably, and just started from the ground up. And we think a lot of people can relate to the channel, and they're just kind of along for the journey as well.
Yeah, tons of fun. So you've moved from Colorado to Florida, right? So you've got now a very good sense of Florida, and so I want to get your take on an important topic. So we hear the term Florida man a lot. So what would you say are the defining characteristics of Florida man?
Man, I'm trying to get all the credentials gathered up myself. I still think I need to catch an alligator at some point before I can deem myself a Florida man.
Check.
Um, I mean, yeah, I got a jet ski, so it's another Florida man accomplishment that I'm proud of. And you got to get used to the bugs down here. You got to get used to the humidity. Got to get yourself a pair of flip flops. And yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's too much more to it than that. I was surprised that I came down here, and I feel like I fit in down here a lot more than a lot of the local residents. There's guys, and we hung out with like Taylor Ray, and we went down there, and he's scared of the lizards running around. I'm like, how are you even living down here?
That's just not right. That's just not right. Well, it's interesting. You've mentioned a couple of times, some of the guys, right? And so the car community is ultimately a pretty small group. So how important is the community around car culture to you and to your channel's success?
Um, Sorry, repeat that one again.
So, how important is the car culture community to you, and particularly like the community of other YouTubers and creators in the space? How important like have those relationships and what you've learned been to your success with BoostedBoiz?
I'd say very important. I definitely keep up with a lot of other car channels. I'll watch what other people are doing just to kind of get an idea of like what's good content. And I think it's good, obviously, to check out what other people in the same atmosphere as we are doing. So when they have a successful video, you're like, oh, that's cool. How can we kind of do that in our own way? Not and yeah, especially collaborating with all of the other car YouTubers has definitely helped us out a lot. I love trying to collaborate with as many as we can because I think it's good to try to get into every little group that we can, and just it helps advertise the channel and stuff like that. But it's also just fun to kind of meet up with all these people and see what they're about and just go have a good time with them. But yeah, it's definitely really important to us, the community and everything. I feel like we're pretty involved because I think some other guys kind of keep to themselves. There's, which is nothing wrong with that, but they'll stay in their garage or they'll stay wherever they're doing and not venture out too much. But I'm always open to the opportunity to go collaborate or hang out with other YouTubers and just try to, be part of the community as much as we can.
I love it. Well, there's one member of the community who you interact with quite a bit, and I happen to have talked with one Garrett Mitchell, who's better known as Cletus McFarlane, and he thought that it would be a wise idea for me to ask you, why is it that third gear is so damn hard to shift into?
I knew it was coming, dude. I mean, it's a freaking. I guess I just suck at shifting. I'll just leave it at that. But I mean, I want to blame it on the car, but it's a common thing with Hondas that those third gears, especially when you start throwing a lot of horsepower at them, the stock synchro transmissions, they get really hard to shift because there's so much stress inside those transmissions once they're making that crazy power that just shifting them in general is really hard. So yeah, I've been known to miss third gear quite often in that car, in my Civic. So it kind of grew into a meme and a joke. So I just go along with it.
I love it. I love it. Well, I think being able to give people a hard time is one of the best parts about being alive. And so if somebody's giving you a hard time, that's a good thing. When people stop giving you a hard time, I always am like, shit, that's when you really need to start to worry if people are taking things too seriously. But while we're on the topic of car questions here, so if money were no object, what is your dream car engine combination?
That's a really tough one because I like so many different setups that I feel like even if I gave you a straight answer, like a couple weeks later I'd be bored of that one and want to move on, because we have a lot of different projects. But man, I don't want to give any secrets too, but someone just came out with a blueprint of a K series engine, which is the engine we most commonly swap into all our vehicles, and they configured it into a V8 configuration, and they're making it a reality. So it's going to be like an 8-cylinder K series, which is normally just a 4-cylinder engine. I'd want to take that engine and put it into something gnarly and basically make like almost like a Gymkhana spec rally car, like something like you would see in Ken Block's videos or something. Make just an insane tube chassis car if money wasn't an option. And I have an idea of what chassis I want to use, but I don't want to get too into it because I don't know if maybe it could be a reality one day. But from the ground up, building a car aside, if it was just for whatever car, I'd probably go with like, a typical McLaren or Koenigsegg, something just engineered really well, just drive it around. And that would be what I would want. So, but I don't know if we'll ever get to that point. For now, I'll stick with the Honda Civics.
Yeah, keep plodding around, keep plodding along, keep doing what you're doing. It's obviously working, and sort of brick by brick you're building there. I have no doubt if that's what you ultimately want to go after, that will happen in the future. So one of the things I think so many entrepreneurs struggle with, and I, I'm definitely putting you in the entrepreneur bucket. I mean, you're a YouTube, you're a car guy, but ultimately you're out there creating your own, career on your own independently. So I think you clearly fall in the entrepreneur bucket as well. But one of the biggest challenges is, how do you prioritize all the different opportunities that exist out there? Because look, you're pulled in a lot of different directions. You've got YouTube, you're obviously got a lot of things going on Facebook. You have countless car projects at any given time. There's maintenance to do on the cars. There's brands that you can be partnering with as well. So how is it that you decide where you're going to spend your time, Kyle? Because you've got a lot of different options, and frankly, I feel confident in saying you've got more options in front of you than you do have time. So how do you think about prioritizing where you want to invest your time and energy?
Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely spread pretty thin at the moment. And that's something I personally am not good at, is prioritizing everything the way it should be. End of the day, I'm going to spend my time on what can get content out for the channel, because right now that is the most important part for us to keep going, is to make sure we keep pushing content. So up until I find a way to do that consistently, and I don't have to worry about the content as much, and I have more time to focus on everything else going on, then I can do that. But right now I literally spend almost all day trying to think of what we can do for videos, or working on the cars to make a video. And that's pretty much where 90% of my time goes during the day.
Yeah, right on. And as you're thinking about your channel and where you want to go, how do you define success? And I ask that because from the outside in, I have to imagine that this channel's grown beyond what you could have possibly hoped for or expected 5+ years ago. But yet you're still really, really actively working to grow it and to make it work and to do more. So how do you define success?
I mean, I define it like a lot of people do, kind of with how just happy and comfortable you are with where you're at. I don't think it's necessarily about, what your income is or anything, but definitely that helps. So, once you get to a point, at least for me, I am extremely happy with where the channel is at and everything, but I am always looking for the next, big thing. What can we do to make it bigger? Keep going, might as well not stop where we're at. And I mean, in the general scheme of things, I define success as like how happy you are just with everything in general. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that's most challenging. And I think what's interesting is so many people, when they think about like their career or what they want to do, they think about a 5-year plan and like, hey, I need to think long term. And I think that's really, really hard to do when you're sort of an entrepreneur, and particularly when you're a creator, and you got to worry about putting out content more or less every single day. So for you, how far into the future do you find yourself looking and planning, right? Because in an ideal world, you'd be able to look out 20 years and take steps towards that, but that's not very practical. So I'm curious for you and the channel, how far in advance are you able to spend time thinking about?
Well, from what we've been through, I've learned that things can change, really fast depending on how you do it. And at this point, I pretty much just focus on it kind of year to year. I kind of think, what can we accomplish by the end of this year? And then by the end of that year, see where we're at and then prepare for the next. I don't think I really look too far out into the future anymore. I see what it could be, maybe 5, 10 years out, and I have a general idea, but I've learned that nothing will ever seems to go the way you want it to. So yeah, I just look at it about year at a time, see where we're at, and just see what we can keep on improving from there, and just look forward to the next year and keep going. So
And
like you said before, like this has turned into something I never expected it to be. So I'm just kind of going along with it.
why do you think you've been able to have your channel be so successful, right? I mean, obviously the content's good and people like it, but what is it about Kyle, do you think, that has sort of willed your channel to the level of success it's had? Is there a certain characteristic that you think is inside of you that's allowed you to grow the channel and be so successful to date?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's just how much time and effort I put into it, and the fact that I don't give up and I make cool things happen, and just I'm always doing something. I don't really think it's like, my personality or anything so much, because I feel like I'm a pretty normal person overall. I don't think too much stands out about me in general, besides the fact that I can just, work hard, and I don't really give up on where I'm at with stuff. So I think the fact that we've just accomplished so much in the time we've had the channel is what keeps people in, just all the cool stuff that we've done. Because I feel like, um, maybe an average person, or I don't know if you want to say it like that, but someone who's not, doing YouTube, they wouldn't be accomplishing nearly as much as other, automotive YouTubers are in the amount of time that we have, just all the events we do, building all these different cars, doing all these different things on a daily basis. And I just think the fact that I haven't really quit or gave up on it is kind of what keeps people coming back. And the fact that it is cool and no one else is really doing it, kind of like how we are. I really
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear from fans why they like to watch it so much. Because I look at I'm like, I look back and I'm like, I really don't know what's that special about our channel to be at the level we're at. Because like I said, I feel pretty like a normal person. I feel like anyone could do what I'm doing right now if they just put their mind to it. So I don't
So
really feel, I don't even know what it is. It's just hard work and dedication, I think, at the end of the day.
yeah, we know a lot of you BoostedBoiz viewers are watching this conversation. So go ahead and let us know what it is about BoostedBoiz and Kyle that makes you keep tuning in the comments, so we can make sure we get that answer to Kyle here. Well, one of the things I think is that's super interesting about what you do is that there's such a public score that's capped. So as you know, I do work with a lot of different creators. And one of the things that I think is really hard for so many creators is just like the public number of views that is seen for every single video. So literally every job that you ever do, there's basically a public scoreboard that says, hey, how well are you doing this? Fair or not?
Mhm.
And so for some creators that can be really challenging, and I have great deal of empathy for the creators where that is really hard for. And we know for entrepreneurs and for creators, mental health can be a really big challenge for people because you do have that constant pressure. But it sounds like for you, you've been able to kind of thrive under that pressure. And so I'm curious, and I realize I'm stretching here. I definitely don't want to put words in your mouth, but the thought came to me that maybe some of that public pressure and people and being able to see how your videos are doing every day is also a positive driver for you to continue to be able to, tweak your craft, because it gives you that feedback loop. So you've got a little bit of pressure that hey, you want to grow, you want to make sure your content's resonating, but also you're able to tweak things based upon seeing whether people like your content or not, and they speak with their eyeballs in terms of the number of views. So do you see that, like that public pressure, so to speak, being a positive? Has that helped you in any way?
Yeah, I'd say it definitely does motivate me to, push for more, especially, seeing other channels that are similar to what we're doing, and you can see what potential is there. And yeah, definitely looking at the view numbers definitely motivates me to try to figure out what we can do to, you know, get them up and match other YouTubers that are doing the same thing we are. But they're obviously doing really good at it as well. So yeah, all that stuff motivates me. And a lot of people say it's definitely hard to, if you look at the numbers a lot. And something I've learned to get good at is not to just know that we're kind of on our own little path, and we're going our way, and I don't want to change what we're doing just for better numbers. There's a lot of things I know we could do, but I just don't want to sacrifice what we're doing just to chase numbers. I feel like we could do crazy, ridiculous things and purposely, like, some people would maybe get upset about it, but there's a general type of content we could create where if I was going that route, it would be for numbers. And then what we're doing now is more just what we want to do in general. But we have more fun and it's more relaxed than trying to, go crazy with it. So I kind of like where we're at right now, but I do like watching the other channels and seeing where we could be, even doing it the way we are now.
I love the long-term thinking that you're taking. So I think it's so important. And too many people get caught up in the short term, particularly when people are struggling or challenging. That's when people start to reach. And what I'm hearing you say, I think, is something that is really applicable, whether you're a creator or an entrepreneur, any sort of business venture, or even a scientist. It's like, hey, take the long term and do what you think is right for you and your audience or your customer. And there's a short-term win. Sure. Like if you did something crazy and started driving your, cars into a lake, I don't know, making shit up, but sure, it would get more views in the near term, but that's not what excites you. That's not why people are tuning into BoostedBoiz, right? They're really into really understanding how you're tweaking the cars. And then of course they want to see the results on the track. So, I mean, I think that's just really sage, advice for anybody, which is, hey, don't, like, pay attention to the analytics, pay attention to the numbers, listen to your customers, but don't overreact at the same time. Like you've got to continue to stay true to who you are and what you do. And I think you guys have done a great job along the way of striking that balance, which is so important and not always easy to do, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely want to just try to keep doing what we're doing. Don't let it get too out of hand. I mean, I'm not going to say what's going to happen in the future or not, but I think a lot of people relate to the channel just because it is grassroots. And like I said, just guys, working in their garage. And it's not like we have some crazy, ridiculous cars that no one else can afford. I show everything that we do, or at least I tried my best to show what we're doing in the garage and just show that, pretty much anyone could do this if they have the motivation.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of last questions here, but before I let you go, Kyle, and we appreciate your the generosity of you and your time here. So number one, what is your biggest pet peeve?
I think one of my biggest pet peeves is, um, I mean, it goes two ways. I read the comments and stuff, but I think a big pet peeve of mine is people assume something on the internet is what it is. And what worries me is that a lot of people actually, believe what they see is real all the time. But um, it's a pet peeve of mine that people don't realize how much, can go into all this stuff. And that, one little thing, if something, they're not happy with, if they're not happy with one little thing that you're doing wrong, then, they'll have to put in something negative about it when end of the day, you're just kind of doing your thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess I've had people like negative comments, but I don't let them get to me.
Right. I agree. It's funny because
I don't understand why people need to do that, but I get it. It's like, it's the internet, I don't really care, but at the end of the day, it's like, I don't get it.
yeah, no, it's like you don't let it get to you, and you're smart, but at the same time, it's still like a head scratcher why there is the negativity, and people are just quick to post negative things, and you're like, okay, I'm just a guy trying to do things that people might like, and if you don't like it, that's fine, no problem, but don't really get why you gotta tear it down. But sadly, that is so much of the culture. So I can appreciate that. Even with some of the ads that we'll do for MuskOx online, I'll see some of the criticisms that people will levy, and it's like, I feel like you have to go out of your way to to think some of those thoughts, but it is what it is, and we both know that those things are going to continue to happen. On maybe a more positive thought, what is the greatest piece of advice you've ever been given?
I mean, that's a tough one. To be fair, I haven't got too much advice in for what we're doing here, but I mean, I've been down sometimes, just getting overwhelmed with things, and I've had people just cool me down, just be like, don't worry, it'll get better. Just kind of keep your head where it needs to be, and just stay focused, and it'll get better for you. So it's worked for me.
Yeah, this is going to sound cheesy, and for you, those of you listening, please know that I'm aware this is going to sound cheesy, but in all honesty, one of my favorite quotes is from the movie Rocky, and he says, one of the most important things in life is when you get knocked down to just keep getting back. Excuse me, it's going that one more round when you don't think you can. That's what makes all the difference in life. And I really do think there's a lot of truth to it, because you've gotten knocked down, I've gotten knocked down, everybody's gotten knocked down, but it's sort of like, okay, can you get back up? Can you go one more round? And some of this stuff, like, you don't want to be too dramatic about it, but it's just kind of like, okay, day-to-day stuff, you gotta, the way you're successful is by continue to go forward on, what I say, 1,000 faceless mornings when nobody's looking and nobody's watching. So I think that's really important advice. And sometimes the best advice is not sexy. And that's how, like, the most successful people make things happen, is they just work hard every single day and continue to find ways to make things happen, even when they don't feel like it, especially when they don't feel like it. Right.
Yeah. I think that's really it. Just never, you never know when your moment could shine, I guess you could say.
Well
You
said.
get knocked down a whole bunch of times, and just gotta keep getting up and keep pushing. It'll come.
Well, that's a great note to end on, Kyle. Well, we appreciate you join us here on the Herd Has Spoken. We appreciate you being part of the MuskOx herd, and we're excited to continue to follow you along the way. People can follow you on YouTube, your channel BoostedBoiz, correct, and Instagram as well.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Like I said, it was my first podcast, so definitely warming up to it, but I enjoyed it a lot.
All right. Thanks for joining us, Kyle. Thanks again to Kyle for joining us on the podcast. I know Kyle had mentioned this is the first podcast that he has ever done. I'm sure this will not be the last podcast that he does, but we really appreciated having Kyle on, and I hope you learned a few things about his pursuit of creativity and frankly the advice piece of just continuing to stick with things. So important, and here at MuskOx, we're big fans of just living that adventure, finding the next way that you can escape and do something great. If you haven't had a chance to check us out yet, please do so. www.gomuskox.com is the website. We've got all sorts of gear for your next adventure. If you're in Florida like Kyle, we've got some fantastic cooling fabric products that I'm sure you'll love. But no matter what your next adventure is, we've got you covered here at MuskOx. So if you are a listener to the podcast, please go ahead and subscribe. Give us a review. Those things really do help us out. We're ultimately a small organization. I'm kind of trying to put one foot in front of the other, and we really appreciate this support. So thanks for listening. I hope you really enjoyed the conversation with Kyle as much as I did. And until next time, roam freely.